What's up, B Squad? It's me, JB, and I am here today with another review for Reasonable Doubt Season 3, Episode 9, you guys. Now, before we get into it, if you guys are watching this video or any other video on the channel and you guys are yet to subscribe to the channel, I need you guys to do me a solid favor and stop taking me out on this date and then have me pay for it at the end of it. You guys know the routine. You can do me that favor by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and also by turning on your post notifications, you guys. And with that out of the way, without further ado, let us go ahead and discuss reasonable doubt, shall we? So the first thing that I want to say before we get into it is congratulations are in order. They've been renewed for season 4, so Jax will be back on our screen this time next year. And this is episode 9, so you guys know next week is the season finale. Am I looking forward to the finale? Yes. Am I sad about the season finale? Yes. So this episode, we see Jax as she's in bed with Lewis, and Jax is thinking about the conversation that she had with Rosie, right? Remember where Rosie called Jax and told Jax that she does believe that maybe it was Ozzy who took out Wendy, right? Now, across town, we see Ozzy. So Ozzy called the stripper over. Now, remember the episode where him and his boys celebrated his birthday and he had Monica call the stripper and him and the stripper went in his room, started getting busy. But Monica came in, he pushed the woman off of him and he flipped out on her. Well, he called that woman over and she was like, what the hell am I doing here, right? And he basically wants a redo of what, not really a redo, but a second chance, in so to speak. So we see as Ozzy is with that woman, he going down on her, she went down on him, and then we see Jackson Lewis, Lewis as Jax. What does she need from him? And she said to put her to sleep. I said, well, go on here, girlfriend. So next morning, we see Jax as she's talking to the team, right? So she's letting them know that they did shift the attention with Rosie's testimony to Sal, right? And so now they need one final thing to cement doubt that Ozzy even did this to Wendy, right? So at this point, Jax is suggesting to put Ozzy on the stand. Bill the scammer, however, he doesn't agree with that. So she asked Crystal, like, what do you think? Crystal is with Jax, and she asked Daniel, like, Daniel, what do you think? And Daniel's like, whatever you said, Jax, I agree with her. So Jack's like, okay, so we got to sit down and we got to have a conversation with Ozzy, right? So we see as Jax and Bill the scammer, they went to go have a conversation with Ozzy, right? And he told them, like, I thought that this was like a last option that if me having to testify, right? And Jax told him, she thinks that it would be a good idea for him to get on the stand to show who he is, show, his personality and all this stuff, and basically make the people love him, right? And he was like, but I don't remember anything. He says to them, like, what if it was me? And so at one point in this episode, he did kind of blank out. So when he blanked out, this episode did quite a few flashbacks. So the first flashback we see is a young teenage Ozzy. And so Ozzy and Rosie were at the vet. And so they had this dog by the name of O-Dog, right? And O-Dog had ingested a large amount of chocolate, right? And so the doctor's like, it's normal to see a dog with just a little bit, but with this is a different thing. So the doctor asked if Ozzy could step out, right? And so when Ozzy stepped out, he stepped out of the room, but he was still listening to the conversation with his mom and his doctor. And so the doctor is basically telling Rosie he believes maybe Ozzy did something to this dog, right? And so then we get back to the present with Ozzy in the room with Jax and with Bill the scammer. So Jax is telling, Ozzy, like, don't ever bring that shit up. Like, don't say that again. Like, that's not what we're like, don't mention that. We can't do anything with what you dream and all that kind of stuff, right? So she says we need to focus on we need to focus on how to win this based on the evidence and not dreams, because the evidence that the prosecution has, it's nothing. It doesn't prove that you were someone who was there and took out Wendy, right? So Jax is telling him, why she believes that he should go on the stand. And she says, at this point, they're talking about they need to prep him for the questions that she's going to ask him, as well as the questions that Mike would potentially ask him, right? So she told him, like, go get some water, go use the bathroom, and then come back and we'll get this started, right? And so when he left out, that's when Bill the Scammer was talking to Jackson's like, I don't think he's ready to go on the stand. She's like, exactly. That's why we're going to prep him. But Bill the Scammer's like, no, I don't think he's ever going to be ready to go on the stand. And I was like, I get where Bill is coming from, but at the same time, I see Bill for who he is, right? Now we move over to Lewis. So Lewis is with that coder, right? And the guy is still making mistakes, still missing deadlines and all that stuff. So Lewis told the guy, at this point, dude, you're fired. So then the dude was like, well, you know what? My girl is pregnant and there's just been a whole lot. I was like, Lewis, that sounds like a sob story to me. But Lewis, gave the man a second chance. Wouldn't have been me, right? So then we see as Jax and Bill the Scammer, they're prepping Ozzy, right? So Bill the Scammer is, he's being Mike. And the questions that he's asking, you can see that Ozzy is getting a little tense and a little heated in this moment, right? And so they both let him know, like, this is exactly what the prosecution wants from you. They want to show you as a angry, violent person. So they put a pause on it for a minute. And so Jax told Ozzy that, when it comes down to it, I believe you. And he was like, I don't know why you believe me. Because he's like, part of my job is lying to people and making people believe what I want them to believe. And but she still says that she believes him, right? So then we move on and we see as Jax is talking to Lewis about what's going on with this case and how Bill, the scammer, he's not on the same page with her when it comes to this whole putting Ozzy on the stand. And you know, Lewis is like, oh, he sounds like billable bitch. I was like, yeah. But at the same time, I do get where Bill the Scammer is coming from with putting Ozzy on the stand. It's like, do you take a gamble with that? And I think that's really what it is Jax is taking a gamble. Now, moving on. So we see as Ozzy is having this conversation with Autumn about one of his previous doctors who this doctor, all that they did was they prescribed him Adderall and they sent him right back to work. But they did, diagnose him with some kind of disorder. I forgot what they said. I think it's a behavioral disorder, right? And so she asked him, like, because they talked about the family dog, right? And she asked him, like, did you do it? He said he thought about doing something to the dog and other things to get off of the show, but he told her that his mom thinks that he did it. And so she was like, thinking things is not the same thing as doing things, right? So again, we have another flashback to Ozzy. So we see Ozzy at this point. Ozzy was in his room, right? And it was Ozzy in his room, and Rosie came to his room. And you can see that Ozzy at this point was very reluctant to go back to that show. And he was at this time, he was still trying to find different ways to get out of going back to my cousin and them. But you can see that Rosie was the one who actually wanted him to go back to the show. And I was sitting here thinking to myself, like, damn, lady, like, you really truly do not give one iota of a fuck about your child. Like, that is so weird to me. But very weird, right? So after that, we see Autumn. So Autumn is on the stand, and Jax is, questioning Autumn about her recent visits with Oscar, right? So In Autumn's professional opinion, Autumn feels that Ozzy exhibits arrested development. So Jax asked her, like, what are factors that could lead to that? Could it be like, sexual abuse? Could it be his fame? All that kind of stuff. And Autumn says yes. So Autumn also mentioned the other diagnosis from the previous doctor. And she said that, she didn't see anything that would show that he is capable of physical violence. So then Mike cross-examined her about the previous diagnosis, right? And so he was questioning her. And once she got to the end, she kind of looked over and she was like, did she fuck up? I don't think she fucked up, but I think Mike kind of took it that way. So then we move on. So we see as Jax, she told Bill the scammer that they had a win in court, and she doesn't think that Ozzy is the person who took out Wendy. And he said that is that our angle? So both Crystal and Jax are talking. And when they start talking, the whole thing of Ozzy is this sheltered child star who's never done anything for himself. He's relied on other people to do things for him. So why do we believe that someone who is, I'm using air quotes, dumb, stupid, can orchestrate taking out Wendy and doing all the things that he did to try to cover it up? And so Bill has an issue with this. And Jack says, what is your problem with me? Like, what is your problem with me? What is your problem? So she finally put two and two together. She was like, wait a minute. Did one of the partners come to you and offer you something? And he let her know that he had been approached by being a business partner. She said, who was it? She kept asking him, who was it? Who was it? Who was it? So he finally told her who it was, right? And so then we move on. So we see Chelsea. So Chelsea was outside of Lewis's job, and she told him about Eddie, and that, Eddie is not someone that Jack should necessarily trust, because she says that Eddie was there when her mom passed away. But when her mom passed away, he didn't help with any funeral things or anything like that. So she feels that he's trying to scam Jax, right? And she also mentions that when it comes to his drug use, he's clean when he wants to be clean. I was like, oh, interesting. Now we move on to Daniel. So Daniel, he got a text message from Kristen, and it was basically a goodbye. Actually, it was a note that she left for him, telling her goodbye. So then we see her as she's in her car and she's ditching her phone. And so we get to court the next day. So in court, Ozzy's dad is there, and he tells him, like, yo, your mama and your sister, they're not gonna make it to court today. So Jax then put Ozzy on the stand, and essentially she's showing that he has pretty much no knowledge of anything that goes on in his life. And she asked him, like, what did he do the night that Wendy was unalive? And he told her, I got high and this and that, right? So then Mike cross-examined him. And when he started cross-examining him, Ozzy did get upset. So then Mike was talking to him, and he was like, I don't remember anything from that night. So Mike was like, so were you that high that, you could have went up there and you could have done something to her? He was like, no. Because Jax asked him, where do you buy a gun at? He said, the gun store. She was like, what kind of store? She's like, okay, where do you buy rope at? He said, the rope store. Then she asked him, like, when was the last time you fired a gun? He said, about 7 years ago. She asked him, do he know the code to the safe? He doesn't know the code to the safe. So with Mike, he's trying to say, well, Alex told us that you asked him to drive you up to the cabin. And so Ozzy was like, Alex had only been up to the cabin one time, and I couldn't even tell him how to get back there. And so Mike was like, why couldn't you tell him how to get back there? He was like, because I don't know how to get there. And Mike looked defeated in that particular moment, right? So then we see the partners as they're having a conversation with Bill the scammer, right? And they were very pissed off at him about finding out that Jax had placed Ozzy on the stand. And so Bill decided to make a deal with them. So we see as Bill the scammer had them go to Jax's office because Jax is preparing for the closing. And so Bill the scammer, he wants to do the closing, and that was his little deal with the partners. And Jax told them two men off, and she was like she just gave them their ass, handed them their ass on a silver platter, and I was 100% here for it, right? So then we have another scene with Ozzy that I forgot to mention. So we see a scene with Ozzy, and he was with Monica. So he was on set, and he was in his trailer, right? And so Monica was trying to come on to him, and he was like, I told you no. And so Monica was like, well, I didn't know that you was gay. So he turned around, and I'm assuming he was erect at that particular moment. So Monica was like, I'm here for you, whatever you need, right? So Monica left out. And when Monica left out, Ozzy went to relieve himself, right? So then a PA came and knocked on the trailer door and said, we need to get you back to set. So Ozzy didn't answer. So the PA walked in, and Ozzy went off on that PA, right? And the PA was like, but I knocked. He was like, you didn't fucking knock. He was like, but I did knock. I think I knocked. He said, did you knock or do you think you knocked? So he's scaring this young boy, right? And Ozzy's a young boy as well. So Ozzy said, say that you knocked one more time. So the boy said he knocked. So Ozzy grabbed a trophy and threw it at the boy, and he was about to attack the boy. And I was like, oh, wow. So Ozzy had, like, you can really see that Ozzy has a lot of anger issues. But I honestly just think when it comes to Ozzy's anger issues, it stems from his family. Like, and that's terrible. So we then see as Rosie, she went to go apologize to she went over to Ozzy's crib, right? And she went to apologize to him because at this point, I think she's realizing it. She apologized for one, not being in court for him that day when he testified, but she also apologized for not believing him when it came down to ODOT because I think it was her, someone found a letter that he had, and he wrote how much he loved that dog. So then after that, we see Daniel. So Daniel found Kristen. So Kristen is, I believe she's at their cabin, right? So Kristen is watching the trial on her phone, and she has a gun in her hand. And so Daniel is like, Kristen, like, don't do anything, don't hurt yourself. And we listen to Kristen talk, and you guys know that I've been had my eye on Kristen since the first episode, right? So you listen to Kristen talking. Kristen, we find out she's the one that actually hurt O-Dog, right? And it's an age-old story when it comes to siblings, and I can only imagine what it's like when one sibling is famous and the other one isn't, right? Because Kristen felt like she was in, and I think Kristen is the older than Ozzy, right? So Kristen didn't get attention from her mom and her dad. She felt like Ozzy got all the attention, so that's why she ended up hurting the dog and that. So I was sitting here thinking to myself, I'm like, so could it have been Kristen that took out what's her name? Wendy. Because you guys know I've been thinking that it was, again, you guys know I thought from episode 1 that it was Kristen that unalived Wendy. But yeah, you guys. So we see as Jax wants to Bill the Scammer's office to let Bill the Scammer know that the verdict is in. We also saw that he got a phone call from Kendra's attorney, and Kendra wants more money from Bill the Scammer. So yeah, you guys, that was the end of episode 9. Overall, really good episode. I can't imagine where we're gonna go in next week's episode. I know next week we're gonna get the verdict. I would be surprised if the jury comes back and finds Ozzy guilty because, like Jackson said numerous times, and she even said it numerous times in this episode, that the burden is not with them, that the burden is with the prosecution. And at this particular moment, the prosecution, in my personal opinion, they haven't proven the burden that Ozzy is the one that unalived Wendy because there are so many holes in everything. And Ozzy's testimony, I really think that hurt Mike in the long run, especially the fact that Ozzy is letting it be known that he doesn't know anything about anything. So you expect me to believe that a man, a 25-year-old man that doesn't know where to buy a gun, doesn't know where to buy a rope, can execute this crime? But yeah, you guys, I want you guys to definitely tell me what you think and what you feel about this episode of Reasonable Doubt down in the comments section below, you guys. Subscribe to the channel, turn on your post notifications, you guys, and also share the video. And until the next time, do me a solid favor, you guys. Stay safe. Take care of yourselves. Wash your hands. Be blessed. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, bye, guys.